Hey.
Yeah, I think that's everyone here. Alright, so hang on a second.
Oh my goodness.
Alright.
So many people here.
I am the tallest one in here.
Alright,
What the
alright,
fuck?
welcome.
What the hell is
So, this is our Game Dev Q&A with Scott Warner. So, Scott is a veteran game developer who's worked on many classic and awesome games that he's going to talk to you a little bit about. He and I have also worked together in the past at a company called Pandemic Studios, which was a independent game dev active from, what was it, like 2000 to 2010?
It was.
Yeah, and so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Grizzly. I'm the creative director of Rec Room, and I'll be your host tonight. Now, everyone knows that I've got the power to mute everybody, right?
Shut up! Shut up!
Oh,
that's made things a little bit more comprehensible.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna unmute everybody, and basically what we're gonna do is Scott is Scott is going to give us a bit of an intro and introduce himself to us, tell us a little bit about his background and the games he's worked on, and then we'll open it up for questions and we'll have a nice chat. I can, yeah.
Thank you.
Who's talking to me?
Not weird.
Oh my god, I'm such a...
Oh, Dave? Okay.
Shut up!
All right, Scott, take it away.
Hey, so I'm a video game designer. I've been doing this for about 20 years. Whoa, some skin on my head.
Sorry.
And my background, my titles basically are, I started in the game industry at a place called Interplay, in a division called Black Isle. And in Black Isle, we made games like Fallout and Planescape and Icewind Dale and Baldur's Gate and such. I worked on Planescape and Icewind Dale before then joining the same company that Cameron worked at, which is Pandemic Studios, because I wanted to make action games. The first thing I made was actually an RTS called Full Spectrum Warrior. Probably on that. And then
That's dope.
Cameron and I then worked on Mercenaries for about, 7 years?
Yeah,
years,
Mercenaries 1, Mercenaries 2.
Mercenaries 1 and 2. And that was a great open world sandbox game that we loved, and that's probably still my favorite game development experience I've ever had. Yeah. And then after that, I went over to Microsoft to head up Halo 4 in the design, and we worked for like 3 or 4 years on that, shipped that game, and then went to EA to work on a lot of Star Wars related stuff, none of which they shipped, and ended up shipping a Battlefield game instead, which is Battlefield Hardline.
Ooh, I love that.
And since then, I've been working at Oculus in the content team here up in Seattle, and we've done things like if you've ever played the touch controller demo with the robots, that was ours. The big dinosaur demo, that's ours. Basically, we just build a bunch of stuff that people see when they first put on the controllers and the headset and whatnot. So that's kind of like a basic sort of career overview of me.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, so that's Scott, veteran game designer, been in the industry a long time. So what questions do we got? Put up your hands, and we'll go kind of one by one. So Duck, looks like you got a question there.
Did you work on...
Question is, did you work on Battlefield 1?
Indirectly. So what happened was Battlefield 1 took a lot of the systems work that we developed for Battlefield Hardline to handle some of their campaign stuff. So like, if you've done any of the sort of stealthy stuff in Battlefield 1, any kind of things that have to do with sort of combat AI and how things see you and sort of interpret you in the world, my team and our gameplay team on Battlefield Hardline built a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, so all the modern Battlefield games share an engine, right? Why don't you talk a little bit about the EA engine that they share?
EA basically has a centralized engine called Frostbite, and it's a lot like how Unreal was developed. So over time, most of the games that are built at EA are built using that technology. So Battlefield obviously has been built for a very long time using that engine. It started with Battlefield, but there were some things that it didn't do just by the nature of being the engine itself, and that had to be built by teams. And our team built some features that ended up getting used in Hardline or in Battlefield 1.
Cool. All right, what other questions we got? I think Pieface, did you have a question?
Yes. How did you start to develop Halo 4?
How did we start to develop Halo 4? You mean like how did we come up with the idea?
Yeah.
Well, so what happened was after Halo 3, Bungie decided that they wanted to be their own separate company, and Microsoft owns Halo, so they had a decision to either build it internally or get an outside team to build it, and they decided to build it internally. So they had to hire a bunch of veterans to start putting something together, and I was one of the first designers who came on board. And basically, we wanted to continue the story of the Master Chief. And in particular, I was really interested in the feeling that you had when you played Halo 1 in the campaign, and everything was still very new and mysterious, and you didn't quite know what to expect out of the world. So that was the kind of like the big sort of general idea that drove all of the development of that. So if you like play the campaign and see all the things around the sort of Forerunner world and the new enemies you encounter and just general sense of mystery about what's going on, a lot of that comes from the initial idea of like, hey, let's try and go back to Halo 1 and try and make something that's a lot more mysterious, where we don't know that there's a covenant yet, or what's, you know, the general like threat to humanity. So that was the start of it.
That's awesome,
All right.
dude.
Since we're talking about Halo, who's got a question about Halo? All right. The newbie. Oh, is it the newbie man? Is that you? Yeah. Okay.
You may or may not know this. I don't know, but like, do you know if the Halo 4 is going to be Xbox One X enhanced like Halo 3 or not?
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't been with 343 since 2013. But I suspect that they'll try and do some things for Xbox One X.
Jesus
They did the I forget what they call it, but basically the enhanced version that allowed it to run at 60 frames a second and be at modern resolution. It's the Master Chief Collection or something like that. So that's already pretty nice. They may do some more things visually for it for Xbox One X, but I don't know. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I got a
All right,
question.
who else has got a Halo question?
Thug.
Thug.
All right. 3 questions. The Warhog. Did you have any input on it?
Yeah, I mean, basically we did a little bit of our own tuning to the Warthog to try and make it, you know, feel and play and control better.
You know, the Warhog is like one of the best things of multiplayer for Halo.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you talk to the original developers of Halo, they'll tell you that Halo was the game built to use the Warthog. So, like, basically, they started making an RTS first after Myth, and they basically started playing around with the Warthog and loved the idea of driving it around. And to this day, I would argue that there really isn't another first-person shooter that does vehicle controls or incorporates vehicles like Halo does. Right?
No other game. And one more question, the Banshee.
Yeah.
Any input on the Banshee from you?
Any input on the Banshee? I mean, to me, the Banshee is kind of... So, yes, we did... Again, every vehicle that went into Halo 4, we did tune. We were of the feeling that a lot of the vehicles were already tuned quite well. And by that, I mean, like... the vehicles are...
disagrees with you.
The vehicles are easy to get started with, but then they're difficult to master, which is the essence of great gameplay. And if you compare that to Battlefield, in which most people are going to get into a vehicle and die the first time they try it.
Right.
You can get started in a Halo vehicle pretty easily. I mean, the Banshee is a little more complicated than the Ghost, yes. But it's meant to be, because it's a little bit more challenging. You have a lot more dominance when you're in it. You're good at it. And
From Reach to 4, though, it became worse.
it became worse? Well,
Yeah.
that's the possibility that happens anytime you make some changes, for sure.
All right.
That's
Tenfold.
entirely Scott's fault.
Tenfold.
All right.
Thank
any
you.
more Halo questions? Little boy.
It was no, not about Halo.
Well, all right. What's your question?
How did you come up with the idea of Rec Room?
Oh, record.
Well, when I thought about it to begin with, I was like, wow, I should make this social club that everybody should join. No.
Great job thinking of Rec Room, Scott. Thank you. Well, so we're here to talk to Scott. So who's got questions on Scott's games?
Hey, someone-
Looks like we got. Is that Bolts?
this guy hasn't made?
All right, what you got, Bolts?
Is there any game you haven't made?
On the Halo 3 soundtrack.
Oh, let's get photo.
Well, the question was,
Thanks.
what's your thought on the Halo 3
I don't want
soundtrack?
to be unsafe.
It's one of the
This is
best
so
soundtracks
close.
ever known. Like, in fact, I would say it's probably in my top 3. I love all. I mean, going beyond the chant stuff, like all of the beautiful like piano composition stuff that Marty did in it is
Oh, someone
amazing.
took my camera to boat kick
What are the other
everything.
What are the other soundtracks in your top 3?
Number 1 by far
Yeah,
is Metroid Prime.
go
By
ahead.
far.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. All of the music set is fantastic, and I love it. And I listen to it actually on a pretty regular basis.
All right.
Excuse me, the police here!
Matt,
Get out of here.
Why is he
Matt, what's your question?
Kicked back. Kicked out of the...
What's the first program?
You better
Right there?
Shut up! Shut up!
Hi, face.
Shut up!
You know we can hear you, right? All right. What's your question, man?
What's the first
Oh, your mic cut out for me.
I missed
Say that one more
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I heard nothing.
Okay, what's the first programming language you learned and why?
Oh, question is, what's the first programming language you learned and why?
First programming language would probably be, well, definitely be Apple Basic. No, actually, it would be, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. I don't even know which version of Basic it was, but the first computer I ever used was a Texas Instruments 99.4a.
Hell yeah.
And it was definitely basic on that. And I think the very first thing that I actually
Good photo.
coded on that was a Transformers Choose Your Own Adventure text adventure. So you could
Oh,
basically,
yeah.
The first one in Etch a Sketch.
no, it wasn't even that technologically advanced. It was like Optimus Prime Go North.
So Scott and I are very old. Scott, what year did you start the games industry?
1997.
Oh,
You're a puppy.
Yeah.
You're still a puppy.
yeah.
You're still a puppy.
All right,
You
who else
were
has
like
got questions?
1991, right?
No,
Thank
I'm
you
94.
for all your games.
94.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you
Oh,
for
you're
all your
right.
games. They're awesome.
Yeah, Scott has one of the coolest resumes of anyone in the games industry I know. All right, Tweesome, what do you got there?
So, I just want to say, that Halo's a great game, first off. And, me and my big brother used to play it all the time when I was a little kid,
Cool.
so, I
didn't
want to...
So he's saying, hey, thank you for Halo, it's a great game. He and his big brother played it all the time. What's your question?
How did you guys come up with
Sorry,
the idea of
I didn't mean to
Halo?
hit the guy.
Like, how did you come up with the idea?
Just a general
Buy a
question about
book.
the idea of Halo. Halo 4 or Halo? Because Scott worked on Halo 4.
Oh, well,
Read the book.
I'm on the ground.
All right, what other questions have we got? G, do you have a question there?
Yeah, I do actually. Scott, based on your extensive experience in programming games, I wanted to know your feelings about teleportation as a means of locomotion and whether that will eventually change. I mean, how do you see it?
I didn't hear
So, two things on that.
Locomotion.
First is that I'm a designer, so I don't code per se. I do scripting, that sort of thing, very high level stuff. But as far as like locomotion, I mean, the problem is that we currently still have an unsolved scientific problem that if we move the camera and divorce it from you, the person, in virtual reality, roughly half of the world's going to get sick. So we have to have a breakthrough in which we solve that problem to where we can allow locomotion for everybody.
Oh, wait.
Because otherwise,
Okay,
it's just
okay.
we can't
Wait a
have.
Hey, well, you
I don't
can't tell
want
the-
someone coming into my game and having
Wait
a
a
bad
second.
experience, even if
You can't
someone
tell the
else
host to
has a
wait.
good
Wait.
experience.
No.
So would you consider
no
having
stranger.
multiple options for locomotion in future games? I mean, if only...
Yeah, in fact, well, some games do it, and I know things that I'm working on will likely support that, so that people have the option, so that those people who are not susceptible to getting sick can use that. That's fine. But it's always something where if we're trying to build for, everybody, even if we have the options available, it still changes how we think about designing the experience. So once we have that breakthrough, though, then we don't have to worry about this anymore. But.
Oh wait.
All right. Good question. Did we have a question over this side? I thought I heard someone. Star Centurion, what you got?
Hey, so most people say that Halo 4, well, I don't think this, but Halo 4 was more of the underwhelming game of the series. I know it's not an easy question, but do you in some way agree maybe it wasn't as strong as its predecessors? Because I love Halo 4, but some people don't agree with me on that.
Yeah, Scott, how do you think Halo 4 stacks up to, the Bungie Halos?
How do I answer that one? So, obviously, some people are going to like or dislike everything that everybody does. Halo 4, I will say, sold 11 million copies and had an 87 Metacritic rating, which means
11
it's
million? Jeez.
on par with at least with the Bungie releases. Now, this said, we can never quite be the Bungie releases because they're the studio that came up with the games in the first place. But it's hard to know as a player, as someone who just gets to experience what the end thing is, to really know what it took to make it happen. And what I'm happy and proud of is that was one of the hardest things to make happen ever in video game development history. And the fact that we came out, most people went, oh, this is something that's in the legacy of Halo. That's what we're really happy with and proud of. So that if some people are like, well, this isn't as good as I expected to, it's like, well, that's something that's always going to happen with anything that you put out. On my resume, there are games that people think are the best of all time, and there's games where people, just thought, this is the most terrible thing, how could you possibly do that? And that's just what you accept as someone who creates something and puts it out there for people to play.
Stop trying to kick each other. Someone's trying to
calm down there, folks. No need to kick people. I got host powers if we need to get rid of anybody.
Maybe we should show who votes.
So something that people may not understand is that while building Halo 4, really 343 was building the studio. Is that right, Scott?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. How many people were at the studio when you started?
No, Jesus.
Seriously, they're still trying to kick.
All right.
Get rid of whoever's doing it.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah, come on.
They're trying to vote kick me. I didn't get enough votes.
Yeah, let's be respectful of Scott's time.
It's either Natty Lan or that person.
Giving up his precious time to talk to us.
They're the people that keep getting on their watch.
Listen.
Duck, what you got?
Okay, this is about the question about the locomotion system. There's a game on Steam called Freedom Locomotion that takes track of your height and everything, and you have to actually run and race in real life. So I thought that might be something to take into account.
Is that a game you've checked out, Scott?
I haven't. There are definitely a lot of that and a lot of other games that created by very smart people who believe they can solve this problem. And we need people to keep trying to solve the problem. As of right now, I'm skeptical that any of them do, but I would love this to be proven otherwise. So maybe I'll check that out and see if there's something interesting, because I'm pretty susceptible to motion sickness.
Don't try playing that when you're tired.
We had a question here. Yeah.
Scott, have you worked on any other games that weren't smaller games that weren't listed outside, poster?
Well, I worked on some things that haven't shipped, but they were all part of big companies.
Well, there was Icewind Dale we didn't put on the poster. That's kind of a big one.
Yeah, so I've basically just worked in AAA games for the most part, with the exception of Oculus. I made little things when I was in grade school. I made a game where you have to try and score liquor from 7-Eleven as a high school student.
I think that's actually real. I don't think that's a game. I think that's real.
It's autobiographical.
That sounds like a pretty fun game. All right, who wants to go? Dark Rebel, what's your question?
That's funny.
All right.
I'll stand up.
Oh.
That'd be
I suspect that Microsoft is going to do it for whatever mixed reality thing that they're up to with their devices first.
Is anyone here on one of the Microsoft mixed reality headsets? You have anyone on the mixed reality headsets?
No.
Okay,
No.
alright, what's your second question?
And my second question is, in the multiplayer, I'm just sitting there on the enemy team, no scope. But then a guy comes behind me, and wait a minute, and then he kills me. I'm like, fine, he assassinated me. But then when a guy punches me in the chest, and I die from one punch, when like Master Chief's over there, getting plasma, bombs, maybe grenades, like.
So the question is, Scott, why did you do such a bad job balancing Halo 4 multiplayer?
No pressure.
100% me.
No pressure.
What I'll tell you real quick is that the kind of key balance thing that we tried to do with Halo 4 multiplayer is we basically had one goal, which was we wanted to try and make everybody just a little bit more successful. Because a lot of people come into Halo and they feel very intimidated. It's kind of complicated compared to other shooters. And a lot of people just would look at their kind of final tally on the board and notice that they'd gotten 1 kill versus someone getting 16 kills and just feel really bad about themselves. So what we wanted to do was just make sure that the average person tried to get a couple more kills and just try and make them just a little bit more successful. That was the balance target we wanted to try and hit. That one actually was true. Like, people in general were more successful in Halo 4 just individually on getting kills. But that doesn't mean necessarily that the balance was completely correct or perfect or anything like that. We just know that in the one goal that we thought, well, maybe if we can get people to be a little bit more successful, the primary thing you do in MP, then it'll improve the impression of the game. But
now, our good buddy and my fellow Australian Brad Welch was pretty instrumental in Halo 4 multiplayer, correct?
Yes, well, he was the lead of the multiplayer side of things, for sure.
Yeah,
all for Pandemic as well.
Yeah, we'll
so really, if you don't like Halo 4, it's all Pandemic's fault, basically.
That's right. All right, I'm going to go over this side. All right, Nanny Lynn, what you got? Hi.
Hey. So with games like Payday 2 getting free VR ports over, do you have any games that you think would be great for a VR port?
Are they still trying to kick?
Games that would be great for a VR port. It's funny, the first thing that popped in my head is like, what I really love are games that are built explicitly understanding what VR is real good at right now. And so, like, my favorite experience probably in the last 3 months has been Star Trek Bridge Crew.
Thank you.
Ooh, I haven't tried that yet.
Because, like, basically, you just sit there in the chairs and interact with the HUD in the way that you would expect from the shows, and it does a lot of natural role-playing, and it's really cool that way. I think adventure games would do really well. Like, good ports of adventure games would do real well in VR. So, like, gosh, I'm just trying to think of, like, one that I would love to see in there. But, like, things where we come to a specific room, and we have to sort of explore the room and look around and sort of see it in great detail, I think would work really well.
Sam and Max hit the road.
Yeah, Sam Max hit the road.
Excuse you.
Things that are very character interactive, like, those work real well too, because characters are really expressive and beautiful in VR. The only complication is, like, as I'm sure all of you know, when you come into VR, you sort of expect to be able to interact with everything. And to get a character, particularly an artificial intelligence character, to be able to respond in the way that you would like them to in VR is just a really, really, really tough challenge. So, if any of you played the First Contact, the touch demo that we did for Oculus, you'll notice that robot is pretty expressive and reacts to a lot of things you do.
I love it.
But we
awesome.
keep them away from you for most of the time because we can't support you being able to, like, you know, feel and touch the robot at all times because it just wouldn't respond because we just don't have the bandwidth to do that.
I can't get close.
All right, who has not asked a question now? Let's do a first-time question asker. Rick Astley, I see you down there.
What inspired you to, like, make games?
The very first time I played with a computer, I wanted to make things. Like, it was just, I think it's anybody who sort of came in the first generation of getting computers. You know, a lot of times you had to make your own entertainment and put in your own programs, and there used to be magazines where you could sort of type your own code in and see things happen. And as soon as, like, I could see something come from nothing and I did it, even though I didn't write the code, I was plugging it in from somebody else. that was really amazing to me. So like I just wanted to start making games there. And so I played lots of games, I made lots of games, and at some point I went away from it for a while because there was a time not too long ago where games didn't seem like they were actually a career. But then fortunately that changed, and now Cameron and I are here, so that's cool.
Yeah. Okay,
So
who else has not asked a question yet?
I have a
let's
question.
See. Nathis Blue
I have a
over here.
question.
Hang on, next. Oh, Nathis Blue. I guess Nathis Blue disconnected.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Of all the projects you've worked on, which one had the most difficult development cycle and why?
Oh, great question. All the games I've worked on, which was the most difficult? Alright, stop kicking people. Stop kicking people, please. Come on. Yeah, it really is.
Please make an option to where only the host can vote.
Sorry, hang on. But Scott, before you answer that question, wait a second. Wait a second. So give me a second here.
Turn, like, the notifications off on the watch?
There is. So in your settings, you can turn off notifications. I'm going to mute everybody for a second. So let's just talk for a second. So one of the reasons we do these Q&As is, as everyone knows, Rec Room is under development. We update it a lot. We rely on our wonderful community to give us feedback and help us figure out how to make things work great. And so this is a learning experience for us. Something I'm learning today is that people trying to kick each other constantly during these events is pretty distracting. So thank you for that learning. We'll definitely make that better for next time. I would really, really request if you can, please stop kicking each other. If someone's being mean to you, just move away from them. You can always head back out to the rec center. We'll improve it for next time. All right. With that.
So the hardest project.
Thank you.
Yeah. What was the hardest project? What had the toughest dev cycle for you, Scott?
Toughest dev cycle. So Halo 4 was pretty challenging, but what I used to tell the team all the time is like, this game has already started fun. We've already inherited this really fun thing from another company, and whatever hard things we're going through, we can take solace in the fact that the sort of beginnings of it are already fun to play. Like, it was already fun to play multiplayer in Halo 4, and 3 years before it shipped. The hardest development game was something that Cameron and I worked on, which was Mercenaries 2, by far. Because we decided to rewrite all the technology to build that game, and we underestimated the challenge that we were going to encounter on that, and it made it so a lot of people couldn't work for a very long time. And there's nothing more disappointing to a creative person than not being able to do the job they're supposed to be able to do. So that was the hardest one.
Who's here is interested or is in a career in video games? Who works in games? Couple of people. Who's interested in a career in games? Who would like to work in games?
I play games for a living.
Okay, just something I would definitely, if there's one piece of advice you take from Scott today, it would definitely be think hard about rewriting your technology midstream on a game. It takes up a lot of time. We learned that one the hard way. All right, who else has got a question here?
I do.
Nico?
I do. I have one.
Let's stick to games. Thanks, Miko. All right. Who else has got a question? Why not chat?
I do. My question is what did your parents do when you said, I want to write video games for a living? What was their actual response?
I mean,
okay.
I said, at that time, I would say that I wasn't really kind of finding myself anyways. So they were like, okay, well, do that for a few months and then go back to doing something for real. And it took about 10 years before, basically what happened is I started working for Microsoft. It was the first corporation I ever worked for. And when that happened, my dad said, oh, you're working for Bill Gates now, and Bill Gates is the richest man in the world, so therefore you must have a job. But it took that long before I had a career, per se, to them.
Yeah, see, I work for myself, and it's pretty much the same thing. I kept getting, get a real job. And, well, now I'm doing what I love, and it's a real job. So, congratulations,
the biggest piece of advice you can get from anybody is, if you know what you want to do, whether it's games or anything else, and you're pretty young, or you're in your 20s, go do that. Like, do whatever it takes to go do that.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
And don't give up.
All right, who else hasn't asked a question yet? Who have we not heard from?
I have
over here, Liali.
But I don't really have
So, I really like the charades game, and I was wondering if there was going to be any other kind of art-based, art-type games put into Rec Room.
Yeah, well, so let's talk Rec Room at the end maybe, but the answer is yes.
Okay.
All right, who's got a question for Scott? Purple Raspberry, what you got?
Okay, really love the Halo games. Never played one in my life. How did you feel when you were developing Spider-Man 3? Like, was it mostly like webs or mostly?
Spider-Man. Yeah. When you came up with the character of Spider-Man, how did that feel?
Specifically Spider-Man 3, the only good one.
I did not actually work on Spider-Man 3. I did Spider-Man 2.
What do you feel about it? Like, what are your opinions on the game?
Gosh, you know what? I don't remember Spider-Man 3 that much. I remember Spider-Man 2. And the reason why I remember that is because the controls for flinging yourself through the world of Spider-Man were so great. Like, it probably second only to Arkham Asylum's execution on Batman.
I agree.
The only problem though is that you didn't get to use that nearly enough, and you spent a lot of time punching people on the ground over silly objectives and whatnot. So I feel like
it's all about the swing.
It took them a long time to come up with the feel for that, and they didn't get a chance to incorporate it the right way. But man, did I like slinging around the city. That part was great.
We actually worked with a bunch of Spider-Man 2 people, didn't we, when that GC?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there was a bunch of Spider-Man 2 people at Pandemic down in LA. All right, do we have a question over here?
Can I ask a rope?
I'm curious for Halo 4. How'd you guys come up with the design for the enemies and stuff?
Oops.
How'd you come up with the design for the enemies of Halo 4?
Oh, that's what was asked?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one where actually I did have a pretty big hand in this. So I really loved Halo AI. It's something that lots of video game developers kind of cherish and love. And I wanted to put my own stamp on this. And we knew that we wanted to make something that was quite a bit different than the other few races that had been introduced before. And what I thought was, well, if you had a race like the Forerunners, where they were really kind of technologically advanced and could do anything, what would doing anything look like? And so initially we started off with ideas where, if you've ever seen Voltron or Terminator 2 with a T-1000, or if you've ever seen the old horror movie The Thing, we really liked the idea of transformation, of something that's able to manipulate its own body and become something else. And so a lot of our early exploration on the enemies were, what if these guys can basically change their form, can produce something else, can combine with one another? And we didn't quite get to the fully realized version of that because it was too hard for us technologically. But when you see things like the Knight in Halo 4 and how it produces the Watcher out of its back, and then the Watcher then goes and is able to resurrect things and put shields out and reflect your, the projectiles you show it and whatnot. The whole idea there was to try and get these creatures to sort of interact with each other at all times in a very interesting gameplay way, in a way that would sort of communicate that they work together, not just as basic entities, but also they're communicating in almost telepathically, or kind of some extra dimension of some sort. So that was kind of the big impetus for that. Was we wanted to make some new enemies. We wanted to reflect sort of a very advanced alien race. They had to be beyond anything you'd seen before, and we wanted them to be quite a bit of a different character than the previous Halo enemies.
Right there. Thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Okay. Touch your toes. You got a question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. One quick administrative thing. Can you please stop people throwing photos on the stage?
Yeah, it's on our list for next update as one of the host things is stopping people printing photos.
But then more on
we
topic.
We love it, it's fun, but it also it's distracting.
Yes, it's very distracting. But more on topic. What would you say is the feature?
We got a question coming in. Start again. Touch your toes, please.
Okay, yeah. What would you say is the feature that you are most personally proud of developing?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Did you hear that one, Scott?
Feature I'm most personally proud of building.
Yeah.
Or involved with building. It's funny, the one that I think has always been the most, or one of the most interesting ones, and I'll go outside of Halo for a second, is I helped build the squad ordering command system in Full Spectrum Warrior, which was basically the challenge for us at the time was to put a RTS on a console, which has really challenging player input problems. And to do that, the way that we did it back then was kind of crude in terms of how we had to sort of mark up the territory and mark how things were going to line up in different places with the squad. So when you kind of when you sort of order the squad or the fire team to a location, they would have to line up in the correct formation around the geometry. And that worked out pretty well in that game. And then that got taken by Republic Commando and Rainbow Six Vegas and Brothers in Arms, just the idea of controlling a fire team inside of a sort of a first-person perspective. So I actually was not a big fan of working on that game. I actually left working that game midstream to come work with Cameron and work on something that was a little bit more taste. But that feature was really cool, and I think it was a pretty good innovation from our team.
Actually, I want to add something to that one. That's so a game that Scott and I worked on together was a game called Mercenaries, which was a PlayStation 2 Xbox game, kind of an open world GTA in a war zone, we called it, Grand Theft Auto in a war zone. And a feature we developed on that game that I think was pretty innovative for the time and that I remember with fondness was the ability to call in any object in the game to your location, and it would get helicoptered in and dropped in a crate. You could get like tanks and cars and weapons and things. It was pretty fun to develop that, to figure out in an open world game, how can you let the player say, wherever they happen to be at any moment, I want this thing to appear right in front of me and deal with all of the complexities of, there might be something standing there, there might be enemies there, there might be wreckage from something you blew up there. That was a really interesting design challenge, and I think it worked out really well, and I think it really added a lot to the game, and so that was a really fun one to work on.
Yeah, to toot our own horn, like that game actually has a lot of innovations in it. But it's the combination of that whole development team coming up with a bunch of great things. Like anytime someone tells you, the encounter in this game is like a Far Cry encounter, what they really mean is like a Mercenaries encounter, because that's where it got taken from.
Hey, well, don't tell that to the Far Cry guys. All right, who else has got a question? Dolphin, what you got?
What was your favorite part about developing Halo 4?
Favorite part about developing Halo 4? Man, there's so many, but just to take one off the top of my head, in the last year I spent about half of my time actually designing and putting things, like actually implementing things into the game. And if you've played through the beginning of the 7th mission of the game, which is the Composer, where the Covenant show up on the hangar and start dropping off units from the drop ships. That's my baby right there. So I spent a whole lot of time making that thing as perfect as I could, and I was proud of the end result big time. So probably that. But I mean, the whole experience was super fun to build and develop, and that we even shipped it maybe.
I remember you enjoyed your giant wall of mission status. I remember coming to visit you at the studio, and you had an entire wall with every mission of Halo with a giant, kind of serial killer weird montage with the status of every mission.
We did that for Hardline, and that was actually super effective on that game for polishing things out, because we just had some very specific things we needed every mission to do and hit, and we just kind of went off the game checklist and made sure that everybody was doing the same thing. So
that's much more.
All right, it looks like you got a question.
Oh my god.
All right, it's Instinct. What you got?
My name is Thor. This is my camera.
Yeah.
Is your mic on, Instinct?
He said his favorite part of making Halo 4 was developing the 7th mission.
We can't hear you. Did you have a question?
No, I changed my mind.
No.
Okay. All right.
Just answering
Question
everyone
over
else's
here.
questions.
Instinct.
Oh, wait, me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott, are you wearing an HTC Vive?
I like that one.
I am.
Nice.
Same.
That's all I have.
Same.
Oh, I know what you're getting at.
All right. Who else has got a question for Scott? All right, over here we got my MI3KC. Mike.
Wait, I forgot.
Okay. All right, who else got a question? Who was saying Gribbly? I heard someone say my name. Oh, okay, here we go. Bolts, all right, Bolts, what you get?
Why have I got social media on my hands?
Oh, because it's a blog. It's super weird. I know.
Social media.
All right, so a few people have seen this, but we see it reported on the Reddit and the Discord. It's actually we have a Facebook and Twitter texture in the game because we want to be able to share photos directly to Facebook and Twitter from the camera, but we haven't implemented it yet. And then we have a weird what's called a texture atlas lookup bug where it basically looks up the wrong texture and it puts it, so sometimes you get Facebook logos on random things, which is
stuck in pointing mode.
So yeah, sorry about that.
My friend got that happen, but his whole game.
Yeah, it's super weird. It's a super weird one. All right. So question over here. Yes, you wave it.
That bug has been unofficially named the rocket
In
effect.
charades, like sometimes it like kind of glitches out. Are you guys like planning on like fixing that or anything?
Are you on the PlayStation?
No.
Oh, okay. Yes, we are. So we have a lot of reports that charades crashes for our PlayStation users, and there's a big fix coming for that in our next update.
I'm on
So that will probably help with you as well. All right, Sis HD, what you got?
So how do you feel that like a character from the game you worked on is now a personal assistant? Like Cortana.
It's a great question. So why don't you tell everyone in case they don't know what is Sis HD referring to?
That's Cortana. It's fascinating. I mean, like to be able. I mean, I didn't come up with Cortana, but like to sort of touch something in some way where you were responsible for some part of its development as a thing. That's obviously really cool. Like, so I like the fact that for example, when I go home, my parents say, "Hey, Cortana" to their Xbox, and I'm like, "I worked on that thing. That's fun." So that's cool.
My sense is, I don't know this for sure, but I've always assumed that like that's a classic case of having an internal code name for something that becomes the name. Like internally to Microsoft, I'm sure they called their assistant Cortana for ages, and then they're like, why don't we just call it Cortana?
I'm pretty sure it's because inside of Microsoft, Halo is like the coolest thing. Like if you get to go work on that or know someone who works on it, other people at the corporation are kind of envious. So they probably just thought, oh, Cortana's like the coolest thing we could possibly name. It's obviously it's an AI.
I don't know. You say that's the coolest, but what about Clippy?
I mean, there is Microsoft Bob and Clippy too. Yeah.
All right, Rubina, what you got?
Do you approve of Windows 10?
Do I approve?
Scott, do you approve of Windows 10? We're getting controversial in here, folks.
Oh. I really like all operating systems, so there you go.
There you go. Look at that.
Good answer.
That's a good
All right, Natty Lynn, you got another question?
I do. So what are your thoughts on Rooster Teeth's Red versus Blue? I know it's been out for a long time, but...
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's kind of some of your earliest, like, UGC machinima stuff. So we were really, like, the Halo team definitely, like, loved it, supported it, and wanted, like, anything that was going on from Red and Blue, like, any kind of, like, sort of user-authored version of what we were doing, or anything it was doing for any of those games was pretty cool. So, yeah, no, I like it.
All right, so we're starting to run out of time here. We've probably got about another 10 minutes with Scott. So here's what I want to do. So first of all, we're going to go, if anyone's got a super burning question for any of Scott's games, Halo or Planescape or any of the games he's worked on, let's get through those. Then we can just do I think there's probably a couple of random Rec Room questions, which I'm happy to talk about, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so who's got a super burning question for Scott that I haven't called on him yet, and they're like angry at me about it? All right.
All of us.
All right. Fogain Wagon? Fogain
Yeah.
Okay.
So I heard that
You said that.
Hey, Fogworks. F-O-G.
Okay.
Fog.
Okay, I believe it is.
So I heard there was a guy that spent all the development time on Arkham City just working on like Batman's cape animation. Did he ever like have to work on something for a super long time that's like something so little like that?
Gosh, the closest I had,
It's a Q&A.
so games that, like movies, like, they can tend to hire tons of people, and you can get people to specialize on an eyeball or a cape and things like that. And some people actually really enjoy those kind of sort of like very, very detailed tasks, but I personally have not had to do something that extreme. The closest I would say is that before I got into being a designer, I was working in test a long time ago at Interplay, and I had to go through, and the technology that ran the early BioWare games, it was called the Infinity Engine, had this way for doing occlusion and a map where you'd sort of draw volumes in almost like a Photoshop layer on top of things, and when the player would go under those things, then you wouldn't see the character anymore. And I had to go through and test all of those for Baldur's Gate. So like basically anytime like you disappear in the world under some beautiful artwork, I made sure it happened, and that was really painstaking.
No, he already answered my question.
All right. Good question. All right. Who else has got a question they really want to ask Scott before we wrap up? All right, over here. Let's do Alisite.
Oh yeah.
This is kind of for both of you. Favorite real-life team building exercise?
Favorite real-life team building exercise? Ooh, it's an interesting one. Oh,
karaoke by bar.
All right, so karaoke. Man, I didn't really have a good answer. I'm going to say Rec Room. Definitely the best team building exercise possible.
Oh, come on.
What?
If you add one Pepsi to another Pepsi, how many Pepsis you get?
Good answer. Drink verification can to continue.
Wow.
All right, who else has got a question for Scott? Anyone? We're bored of Scott. We're done with him. SysHD, what you got?
Just a quick, very serious question. Is it true that Windows 7, 8, 9?
Oh boy. And with that, we go to Jumbotron.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, so first of all, let's say thank you to Scott for being here and for giving up his precious game development time. This was a fun and interesting conversation. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott, for the games. Thanks for all the games.
Yeah, and so we'll do this again. We've actually got a few more. We got a few more veteran game devs in the pipeline that are mutual friends of Scott and mine that are going to come in and chat with us. If you've got recommendations for people you'd love to have a Q&A in Rec Room, find us on the Reddit or the Discord. Let us know. We'll reach out to them, see if we can get it done, because we think this is a really fun forum. Definitely the next time we do this, I'm going to add some extra options for like calming down the reporting and calming down people putting teleport beams in my face and stuff like that. Yes.
Just spawn thermal tomatoes and be fine.
All right.
Did you promise it was going to be Miyamoto in 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's right. Miyamoto for sure, guaranteed. All right, has anyone got any Rec Room questions real quick before we go?
Yes, Gribbly.
8-bit Nintendo, what you got?
Is it true that, are you guys releasing the I'm on the PS4 beta?
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
Is it on November 21st? Is it that public beta?
This coming Tuesday, we're opening it up to everybody who has PSVR.
So many things coming on 21st.
Yeah.
Thank you.
False, what you got?
Please add the option where you disable vote kicks for everyone apart from the hosts.
Okay, yes, we will consider that. We'll definitely come up with a way to calm down. I have an idea that's slightly different for that, but I'm not telling you what it is. It's a top secret idea.
Please tell me.
Teresa.
Do you guys like have any plans for like future quests or anything?
Pirates.
Yeah, actually, we talked about that a little bit. So the current plan is we're going to do a pirate themed quest. We got a lot of fun ideas for doing a pirate quest. Yeah. So I would say things can always change, but I would say January of next year. We hope to have the next quest done.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, the KO.
Finally, what about Halo 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10?
Oh.
And so on.
What? Scott, do you know anything about Halo 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on?
And so on.
Halo's a very cool game. I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah. Good question. Bilal, I think I have you. Do you have a question? I have you ignored, so I don't know if I can hear you.
Yeah, I changed that.
Hang on a second.
Hello, Bilal.
I know. Wait a second here.
Let's go with Bilal. The host ignored you. I'm still trying to kick.
I can't hear you, Bilal, sorry.
You can't hear me because I wasn't talking.
Can anyone hear Bilal? What's he asking?
Is there gonna be an update today?
All right,
is there going to be an update today? Is there going to be an update today, you said?
Star Centurion. Oh, okay, Robert, yes.
Good people.
All right.
Are you on or no? Paramount Studios was going to be doing a
who kicked Scott? Who kicked Robert?
That's okay.
Oh,
yes, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Okay. Paramount announced that they were going to be doing a 3D/VR movies. Or some of the stuff that we're going to be doing, is that something that you're going to be involved with a little bit to get us to where we could actually, I won't say participate because that would be the wrong word, but a way that we can watch the movies?
There's
What, like
lots
big
of
screen?
people working on that problem because everybody believes that sort of immersive entertainment like that is super cool to everybody.
What?
So I'm personally not working on that right now, but I might be in the future. But there are lots and lots of developers who are trying to build interactive VR experiences right now. Until very recently at Oculus, we had a story studio with all kinds of Pixar veterans who were building it, like basically trying to do kind of a first wave of interactive movies. So Henry and Dear Angelica, and there's another one that's out there you can check out. But definitely there's definitely a lot of people who are after that problem right now and working on it.
Okay, Gribbly, my question for you. On the marker pen, when we make cylinders, if we want, I'm trying to make like a target, or a shooting target.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, is there any kind of way that I can turn the cylinder 90 degrees while I'm drawing to where I'll see a round circle? In front of me?
So, not right now. We'll figure out a way so that you can.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, do you like my glasses?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Likewise, feelings mutual. Did you have a question?
I forgot it. Wow.
Okay.
Well, I'll ask if there's going to be an update, Gribbly.
I'll ask if there's going to be an update.
Yeah.
No, Rec Room is finished.
You're talking so loud.
Hey,
it's amazing.
I remember.
Oh yeah, what's your question?
Stop talking so loud.
Are you guys planning on making any more scary games or a scary game?
Any more scary games?
Scary games.
Yeah. Well, the pirate thing will be a bit scary for sure.
Oh no.
And,
I mean full horror.
I don't like scary.
I would say we don't have anything specific planned right now, but never say never. And don't forget that our goal with the Maker Pen and with the sandbox mode is to get to a point where everyone can make their own games. So if you really want a scary game, we're going to make it so you can make your own scary game.
Make it yourself.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
God. Yeah.
That's going to be our answer for everything. So just you make it. Yes, smiley face.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you both think about microtransactions?
I think that like everything, like fire and cars, they can be good or bad depending how they're used. I think I play games that have microtransactions in them and don't mind. But here at Against Gravity, we've always been we don't like exploitative monetization. I think there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. So yeah, I know, Scott, you got anything you want to add on microtrans?
It depends on how you approach it, you implement it, what kind of game it is.
Hey, Gribbly, you got a great host.
Obviously, there was an issue with a game that just happened a couple days ago, but at that same company, every year they put out FIFA.
I wonder what that's all.
I hate FIFA.
Basically, lots and lots of people love Ultimate Team and don't complain about it there. So it really depends on the kind of game it is and how people feel about how the system's implemented.
Yeah.
I don't personally have an interest in putting MTX into things. I would rather you just buy a game for a certain amount and then
just play
it. But
I'm cheap. I like getting things for free.
That's
all
also
right.
good.
A lot of the
free games are awesome.
Well.
Yeah. All right.
Hey,
all right. So
Gribbly.
we're pretty much out of time. Let's do a couple more questions. SizHD, we heard from you a couple of times. Daxter, what you got?
Would you like to add a cone in the Maker Pen?
Say again? Oh, cone.
Cone.
Yeah. We actually, yes. We'll be adding that very soon. We actually have the mesh all ready to go. We just haven't shipped it yet. Coming soon.
Wait, what was the question?
It's an additional shape in the Maker Pen, a cone, so that you could do the top of a rocket ship or something like that.
Oh, to make like an ice cream.
I really want, or an ice cream. Yeah, Alisite.
In Quest how you can pick up enemies with the bow and the sniper rifle? Never fix that.
Okay.
Never ever fix that.
All right, noted. Hasfal.
Yeah, Hasfal, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that there are a couple. Thank you very much. I was here at the last Q&A, but anyway, there are a couple new headsets coming up, next year's, for example, the 4K headset VR.
Yeah.
And does it change anything in the developing process of your games? And
So
are
sure,
we going to be able?
I have not personally tried the Pimax headsets yet. I'm really keen to try them out. I think definitely things like more resolution and bigger FOV help a lot. We've been looking at the new Microsoft headsets that are coming out, getting them up and running. Support for that is early, but we've had a couple of reports that people have played Rec Room on them, and it seems to work. But yeah, so I think it's great seeing more and more headsets coming out, and I think there's some really exciting things coming next year that we're really keen for.
So my question was, are we going to be able to play your game on the new headsets?
So I can't say one way or the other right now because I haven't really looked into it too deeply, but definitely the goal with Rec Room is we want to be on every headset we possibly can be that will support it. So hopefully for sure. Oh, cool. Yeah, there you go. So perfect. All right, Star Centurion and then one more. Oh, sorry, Star Centurion.